Hello everyone, it is time for this week's live stream. We're going to start off with me asking if you could help support my best friend. Unfortunately, she was part of one of the, victims of the fire that happened in Lahaina on Maui. And what happened was these raging, there was a hurricane that was hitting the island, and I think the storm knocked down power lines that ignited the dry grass, which just burned that historic city to the ground. And she lives there and she owns a dive shop there. And what has happened is her house survived, but the business is gone. All the businesses on Front Street are gone. So she set up a GoFundMe, not for herself and her family and her shop, but for the employees that are now out of work. And I don't even know what condition the employees have home-wise, if their houses still exist. But she's trying to raise some money for them. So in this video's description, you'll see the GoFundMe link if you want to send a few bucks. It'll help them put some food in their stomach, or buy some extra clothing or whatever it is, because people lost everything. And at this point, she is not even able to be in her house yet. She's been staying in a hotel because the police are worried about looters. So scary stuff happening over there. So I want to start off and just get into that and put that up here first, because, she's my best friend. So that was sad. I'm glad she still has a house, but she's just trying to help out her employees, and I thought that was really nice. I wanted to talk about Markna. I should put that on the screen, right? Let's see if I can find it. Well, I'm wearing it on my shirt. How about that? So Markna is an event that I'm doing. It's in 24 days, and it's a 24-hour live stream marathon that starts at 9 a.m. on September 3rd and will go all the way until 9 a.m. September 10th. Yeah, so September 9th and September 10th, sorry. 24 days from now. So there's a markna.website you can go to. That's not Mackna, it's Markna, M-A-R-C-N-A. And if you go there, you can see all the details. But I thought I'd tell you some of the speakers that are happening, because this is what you have to look forward to. So starting at 9 a.m., we're going to have Michelle Jensen, who works with the Coral Restoration Foundation. We've got Justin Spogg, who runs North American Coral Labs. He sells corals at all the trade shows. Jean DeViglia is going to be speaking to us about ICP testing. Alex Rose, who is well known for her love of this planet, the oceans, the environment, and she is a fantastic scuba diver, videographer, photographer underwater and above land. So she'll be on. We've got Travis Knorr, who's the president of MASNA, who will be telling us some about Mackna for next year. And he's also going to give us some tours of some places he's been to recently where they're trying to protect the corals in case disaster happens, like what's happening in Florida right now with the excessive heat that's just cooking the corals in the ocean right now over there. My buddy Dwayne Ostreich is coming here. He's coming here from Seattle, and he will be here and doing an interview with me in person, which will be fun. We've got Todd Gardner, who is a well-known breeder of fish, and I'm going to get with him to see what he wants to discuss. We haven't locked in on that yet. Tia Davis is going to be speaking about macroalgae. Paula Carlson from the Dallas World Aquarium will be telling us some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that we always want to know about that you can never see. Brian D. Green is a deep water diver. I've been wanting to get him on this channel for a long time, and Markna was the perfect time for you guys to be exposed to him, because he goes 900 feet or more, which are these deep tech dives where, you have to, well, he's going to tell us, but there are times where he has to go to a certain level and then wait for many hours before he can go to the next level up to decompress the nitrogen in his system and make it safe. So he is one of these guys that will be down there, a quarter of a mile, well, I don't know, a long way down in the water, and eating a Snickers bar, waiting for the clock to run down. I really look forward to that conversation. Scott Oliphant is here from Australia. He will be talking about copepod parasites in the reef tank. James Fothery recently contacted me and says, is there any room left? I want to talk about clams. And I was like, yes. And by the way, he has a clam book coming out, so I'm sure there'll be a little bit of promotion there for that. And then yours truly, I took up a time slot in the middle of the night. Nick Dos Santos from Australia is a coral collector. He's going to tell us about what it's like to run a business over there and how he's getting the corals to us. Jamie Craggs is a well-known, famous guy, pretty much PhD in coral spawning, and he's written some articles and he's done some Markna talks. And I said, I got to have you on Markna, and he said yes. Fadi Abu Tahoon is from the UAE in Dubai. He will be speaking what it's like being a reef keeper over there and what it's like to get what they can get and tell us what they can't get and how he's always had such a beautiful reef tank considering he's in the middle of a desert basically. I mean, yes, there's some water up there, but it's not your typical place for a reef tank, right? Kevin Erickson, who was the president of Masna, he will be speaking to us. And then we've got another 7 or 8 slots I'm filling. So I have some work ahead of me to make sure all 24 hours are covered. But I wanted to let you know about these because, you know, we haven't really discussed that. So between each speaker, there will be a raffle to win something. The raffle proceeds will go to the Coral Restoration Foundation because I picked them. I thought that their work with planting corals in the ocean was an important one. And I thought, you know, whatever money we bring in from raffle sales, let's give it to them. And there'll be some other fun stuff in between, some interludes between each presentation, but you have a lot to look forward to, so that is going to be ongoing. What else do I want to tell you? I'm going to hide this from my screen so I can pay attention to what's going on. Those are the 2 things. That's it. Well, I guess I should mention some other things. I've been doing this weekly, so let me do it again. So Coral Magazine is a great magazine. I want you to subscribe to it. I don't know how many of you guys are doing it. They were just telling me they should give me a special link I can give you so they can track who is subscribing from where, but I don't care. Just subscribe to the magazine. You're going to love it. It's really good. I highly recommend it. I have been reading it for about a decade. Hey, Jackie. And I want you guys to enjoy the knowledge. There's so much you can learn, and they always have new exciting information about what's going on in this hobby and in this industry. Also, I'm going to throw this on the screen if I can find it. Yep, here it is. Let's see. That didn't go away. Turn that off. And there it is. There's Fritz. Hey, I'm gone. What happened to me? I have evaporated. That's hilarious. Let's see. Where did I go? Why am I not here? Well, there you go. I'm just going to put Fritz in the middle of the screen. Thank you, Fritz, for being a sponsor of this channel. And hopefully I can get my camera back. I don't even know what happened. I highly recommend. I really like their salt, and I think that you guys should use it too. So keep that one in consideration. And I'll go ahead and put up here, Reef Trace is an app that I've been using for keeping track of my water parameters. I've told you guys I'm going to be working on some videos to show you how the app works, and I will. On the right side is my notes. I need to update that obviously with some fresh information, but you can see I put little notes in there, and then I can click on these items and see what I did previously to keep track of when I was working on my aquarium. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to get my face back on the screen. Where did I go? That is so weird. Let's see. I can hear Jack out there just causing chaos. Well, I see a camera. Let's try. I think what I'm missing is a little, I don't know. You want to just look at a reef tank for an hour? Yeah. Mitch just says, is it wrong to say I'm good just staring at a tank throughout the talk? It's so funny. How come I'm gone? Oh, the things that happen on live channels. You just never know. Let's see. I think I'm missing a window that I normally have on my screen. Let's try cameras. Okay, I'm tiny right there. That's no good. That is not what I want. Oh, hang on. I think I might have it. There I am. Boy, that was weird. All right, so I've promoted my little event. I look forward to having all of you guys there. I hope you're telling everyone about it because, like I said, we're 24 days away, and I want as many people to attend this thing as possible. Oh, I thought of something that is big, important news for you to know. If you have not heard yet, Reefstock Chattanooga, which was going to happen September 2nd and 3rd, or 3rd and 4th, the Labor Day weekend, just was canceled today. The organizer, Raj, whose last name I couldn't possibly pronounce correctly, was recently in an accident in his home where you'd think he'd be safe. Lightning struck a house next to his house so hard that it burned that house to the ground, and in his house, the whole house shook like a train had hit, and a light fixture off the ceiling fell down and hit him on the head, gave him a concussion, and has messed up his back. And he is just out of commission. And he said, there is absolutely no way we can just do this show. I am the showrunner. I need to be there. And so he told everyone he's sorry, and we're going to bump everything to 2024. So there will not be a Reefstock Chattanooga here in about 2 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks. So I want you guys to be aware of that in case you bought flights or you reserved hotels or anything. You're going to go ahead and cancel those things so you're not charged. And I was going to be a speaker there, and I was told last night about the bad news. So I made sure to tell you guys so you'd know. All right, so today's topic is going to be about green hair algae. And that is actually a very common thing that happens in a lot of tanks. And I see so many threads about this all the time. And the funny thing is, you can read the sentence, but then the picture is never the same. And what I mean by that is somebody will say, how do I get this algae under control? And then you'll see basically white rock with nothing. And you say, well, what's wrong? And then they'll zoom in and you see a few little hairs. And then you've got another guy who'll say, how do I get rid of this algae? And it's wall-to-wall waving green hair algae. And then you have others that will say, how do I get rid of this algae? And there's some here on a rock and some over there, maybe some on the return nozzle. And I'm just like amazed, because you would think the sentence would be the same for all three people. And yet, no, it's all perspective. And some people are just wanting that pristine aquarium with nothing in it. I mean, they just want it to look like a museum piece, which is not life. That's like trying to have a pristine yard. It's not possible. Can't have it pristine. Everything is happening. Everything's growing. There's biology happening. There's life happening. And yes, we trim it and we cut it and all that stuff to make the yard look nice. Same with the reef tank. Things are always happening. So in a nutshell, to save you a lot of time, I'm going to tell you what you need to know to get green hair algae under control. And that way you won't feel like it's a big overwhelming topic, because it's not. The bottom line is you need a lot of mouths chewing it down as fast as it's growing. And if you have plenty of mouths, you will keep this under control always. And if you have a lack of them, if you just buy a few and you think that's enough, and it's not enough because you can see the algae is growing more and more, you need more cleanup crew. So we want to, first of all, know what kind of algae we have. Green hair algae, I guess the Latin would be Derbasia, Derbasia, and it is a very soft filamentous algae that you can touch it, and if you were to pull out a clump, I don't know, between my fingertips it would feel kind of velvety, if that helps. And then there's something else that's very green looking that's way more coarse called Bryopsis. Bryopsis grows out of the rock and looks like green hair algae, except if you look really closely, instead of being individual hairs, it's more like a feathery thing sticking out of each blade. And so you have to really look or turn off the flow and use the macro lens on your camera and zoom in and get a good shot of it, or pull some out and lay it down on a paper towel, or put it in a small white bowl and fan it out to kind of look at what you're dealing with. Bryopsis is harder to get rid of than green hair algae, but there are ways to fight it. And it feels more coarse. Like you reach in and you pull green hair algae, you can pull a whole bunch off with one handful. With Bryopsis, it like breaks off the upper part, but all the little stubby stuff stays on the rock, and it's really hard to remove. And it's not even something you can necessarily brush off with a toothbrush. So if you're trying to remove Derbasia or you're trying to remove Bryopsis, these two kinds are going to be two different approaches, but only because one's tougher than the other. Now, for me, when I've had green hair algae in the past, I just knew to get more snails and hermit crabs. And that was the solution. And I do this all the time on this channel. I recommend 1 critter per gallon. So if you have a 100-gallon tank, you need 100 little mouths working on your tank all the time. I sat in on Richard Ross's talk at, I think it was Aquashella. Could have been Markna, but I think it was Aquashella. And he was talking about algae. And he was saying how phosphate has nothing to do with algae growing, and he was emphasizing the fact you needed more things to eat the algae. And what was interesting to me, what caught my attention, something I hadn't readily heard, which maybe he thought of it himself, maybe it's been common knowledge and I just missed it, but he was emphasizing the fact that the long algae that's grown, that nothing's touching it, nothing's going to touch it. No one wants the old stuff. When you go to the produce aisle at your supermarket, you look for the freshest produce because that's what you want to eat. You don't want the older, tougher looking stuff. Matter of fact, if there's, you take a head of lettuce, the outside leaves are the oldest, right? And we peel those off and throw them away, and we get inside to the more tender stuff in the center. He was saying the same thing comes with algae, that if you rip off all that stuff, all the new stuff that's growing off the rock, the new growth, that is the tender stuff that your hermits and snails will consume. So if you have an abundance, you are number one cleanup crew. You need to pull out as much as you can by hand. And then you need to add a bunch of critters to start chewing on that nice, tender, tasty stuff. And then I would say phosphates do matter and that you should knock them down. So if you were to go through your aquarium and rip out a bunch of hair algae and then wait about 20, 30 minutes and then do a phosphate test, I think you'll be surprised how high the phosphate levels actually are in your aquarium. You might have a test kit that was reading super low because apparently phosphate can be trapped in the algae, it's bound up in it, and so you get a false reading. Just like trying to read phosphate in DI water, you'll get a false reading. Matter of fact, you'll get a very high reading and you'll freak out, and that's because deionized water cannot be tested for phosphates. If you need to test your DI water for phosphates, mix it with salt to make salt water and then measure phosphates and see what numbers you get. Okay, 1656. I wanted to take note of that because I want to know how bad Jack is on the microphone. So I will play this back later and I'm going to hear it. But for now, let's hope it's not too bad for you guys. Jack! Maybe I'm getting a package. So, if you do read the elevated phosphate levels, of course, my recommendation to you is going to be Phosphate RX. Phosphate RX is something you can add to the tank. You just drip it in. It's the maximum dose is 6 drops per 10 gallons. And so if you have a 100-gallon tank, you need 60 drops or less. You could put in 30 drops today and wait a day and do 30 drops tomorrow and bring phosphates down to 50% of where they were. All right, so tell me if that barking is insane because it seems really loud to me. She's so loud! Jackie, stop! All right, maybe it'll be better. So we have the new critters, we have the new, we've lowered the phosphate. Now you should be okay with going forward. Now, now here's something else I read that people say about, buying cleanup crew. Like they say, I don't want to ever buy hermits because they eat my snails. Well, they don't eat every snail. They eat some of the snails for whatever reason. Maybe the snail flipped upside down and the hermit crab ran over there and got him before he could right himself again and get back up on the glass or on the rock. So if you have snails in your tank, flip them right side up again so that their foot is down, or place them where you need them. And you may have to do this a few times. One of the preferred snails that is able to flip itself correctly is the trochus snail. And so if you can buy a bunch of trochus, you'll have less work. If you buy a bunch of astrias, you might need an acrylic rod to flip them over and over and over. All right, I'm going to pause this for 1 second and find out what is going on with my dog. All right, I'm back. So, and here's Jack. I'm sorry, that was a delivery, and the guy wasn't even going to leave the package. He said, I need a signature. I'm having to yell at the FedEx truck, I'm here. So I'm back. Now, bryopsis is a little more difficult because it's more coarse. One of the solutions to doing that, again, you can pull off as much as you can. You can put in snails and hermits to, oh, I was talking about snails getting eaten by hermit crabs. There are different kinds of hermit crabs, and I find that the blue-leggeds are more aggressive than the red-leggeds. I'm not talking about scarlets. Scarlets cost even more, but they are, I get them for looks. I don't get them for cleanup crew, even though they do it, but because they're more expensive. I mean, they could be $6 a piece or something. So I get 2 or 3 just because I like to look at them. Just like I buy one Halloween crab or I get one porcelain crab, you know, they're for fun. But the red-legged hermits are great. They're less aggressive. If you have to buy blue legs, if you can get tiny ones, they are way less voracious than the bigger ones. The bigger counterparts are the ones that may catch a snail and eat it. Now, like I said, they're not going to eat all your snails. And if you have a tank full of snails and you still have an algae problem, it's because you have a lack of hermits. You need both. You need the guys with the pinchers to cut, and you need the snails to snack on what's left. And if you have those two guys working together, you'll have a lot more success. You can also put in urchins like the diadema urchin or the tuxedo urchin. Both of those are nice, but the diadema tends to stab your knuckle and it hurts. It doesn't matter where you put your hand in the tank, you find the urchin the hard way. I never get stung by the tuxedo urchins, and I think they're pretty, and they're being aquacultured now. You can get them about the size of a grape. You put them in your tank, and then they become about this big in about 6 months, which is really nice. And my reef probably has 6 or 7 in there right now. I originally started with 11, and I did lose a couple. One fell into an anemone, and that was it. There was no retrieving it. It was like too late. There's a skeleton down on the sand. But I bought them January of last year, and I still have 7 right now, maybe 8. And that's kind of, I think that's good, you know, to go this long with the same ones. For bryopsis, you're going to want to do one extra step. And that is you want to take a turkey baster, if you have a small tank, or a power head if you have a bigger tank, and blow off the area where the bryopsis is. You just want to keep hitting it with constant... Jack! Can you stop? If you can hit it with a lot of flow, what you'll do is you'll knock the detritus out of the base of the plant. Because the plant itself is very coarse and feathery, so anything that drifts through the water, it traps and makes its own little deep sand bed to give itself nutrients to snack on so this algae can continue to grow and thrive. So if you keep blowing it off constantly to get that detritus out, you're stealing away all of that stuff it wants to eat and rely upon, and the plant will get weaker and weaker. So if you did that every few days or once a week, that's going to help a lot in the battle of getting rid of it. Now, another creature that you can buy that eats bryopsis is the lettuce nudibranch, but they're super fluffy, feathery, lightweight nothings. And when you put one in the tank, you have to put it on the bryopsis, and it'll start eating it immediately. But it can blow off and land somewhere else or be stuck to the side of a power head, and you got to peel its little skin off and put it back on the bryopsis. And I thought they were gorgeous. I loved looking at them, but it was so much work to keep finding them each day and putting them back on the algae. So for me, that was a one-time mission. Another fish that can eat bryopsis would be the foxface. So if you were to get that kind of fish, it would just be chowing down on it necessarily all the time and getting rid of it. Between those different methods of work, you can get rid of it. Now, if you want to try a different approach, one that I'm not scared to recommend to you, and that would be to use FluxRx. So FluxRx is fluconazole, I think is the correct word for that, the medication, and you put that in the system and it will kill off hair algae. And if you use it at double strength, it gets rid of bryopsis. And if you use it at triple strength, it gets rid of valonia, which is bubble algae. So that is a very easy way to put something in your tank, to have the skimmer turned off, wait a few days, wait a week or two, and after that time has gone by, you'll notice that the algae has died back significantly and it will just basically melt away. So that's a nice solution. If you can remove the rock from the tank, you can dribble onto it some hydrogen peroxide directly on the algae. And this sometimes works for those rocks at the top of your reef. But you have to be really good about rinsing it when you're done, because when you put the rock that you just rinsed with peroxide into the tank, what'll happen is the peroxide will hit the water column, and you'll see any snails in your system go straight up the walls of the tank trying to get up and out. It's kind of a crazy thing. So what you can do, you can take that rock that you just worked. So let me explain to you. So let's pretend let's pretend this mouse. This mouse is a patch of Bryopsis on some rock. And I've got a syringe, and I'm just trickling it drip, 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 drip on the plants. I'm just trying to get it soaked. And I'm taking about 3 minutes to do this. I want to let it sit on there for a while. You don't have to drip for 3 minutes, but put it on there, put it down, wait a few minutes, come back, put some more on there. We just want to really soak it in peroxide. You're not going to get that bubble effect like you do on your skin, but it'll get wet. And then after 3 or 4 minutes or so, you can then take it and you can cover it with salt water again. Now you could use turkey basters to try rinsing it, but really what will be better is to take a very small bucket of water, of tank water, and put that rock in there to rinse it, and then go put it in your reef, and you won't have that weird reaction with the snails I mentioned. And this is one way to get rid of Bryopsis. It also could be in the overflow teeth, which, in the old days, people didn't necessarily have teeth, they had egg crate, and the plant would grow on that plastic really well. So we were constantly trying to figure out ways to get rid of it, and I would drip my peroxide right there on the overflow teeth themselves on that egg crate to melt it, and it would turn white, and in 2 or 3 days it was just gone. But these are some ways to deal with the hair algae in your aquarium so that it can be nice and it doesn't frustrate you and distract you and make you feel like you're not doing a good enough job. I mean, algae comes from life. It just is a thing. It's not evil, it's just a pain. But if you have a nice, healthy cleanup crew, you should never have that problem. And that's the point Richard Ross was pointing out. You gotta use a lot of mouths. And you know what? He didn't say this for the first time. That goes all the way back to a talk I heard from Eric Borneman back in the early 2000s, where he was speaking to a club in Houston, and I was there too. And he called them cows. And he said, if you look at a field full of cows, the grass is nice and short. Where there's no cows, the grass has grown tall. He's like, your reef tank needs a ton of cows. And I thought, man, that's a really good illustration. So, get more cows, and it will help to control the problem when it comes to hair algae and Bryopsis. Let's see. See, it was a short topic. Didn't even take a long time. All right, what do you want to talk about? Now is your chance to ask some questions. Chris Smith, I'm glad you finally made a live stream. Welcome aboard. And I should say hello to some more people. Everyone said hello to me. Hi, Logan. Hey, Thomas. Hey, Elmer. Hi, Surf Zone Aquatics. Hey, Kim and Mark. Mark says 21st. Is it your unit? Because I'm looking at your profile pic. Or is it your 21st live stream? Or I'm not sure what we're referring to. And then I see Andrea and Christine and Amar. Andrea, Christine, and I see Rick and Ellery and David. Everyone's here today. It's great. Let's see. Atkins Nature Aquarium says PO4 at 0.6 ppm. Algae isn't terrible, but it's there. My own reef tends to be somewhere around 0.25 to 0.75, depending on how long ago I dosed Phosphate RX, but you don't see a lot of algae in my tank. You do see some Valonia. You do see Mahanos. You do see Vermitids, but you don't see hair algae or slime algae or anything like that. Now I have a refugium and I have an algae turf scrubber. And I think between the two of them, that helps to outcompete any kind of nuisance growth in the aquarium itself. I've always believed, and I think it's still true, that a refugium filled with macroalgae will steal some of the nutrients out of the water that the microalgae, hair algae, would try to use or utilize. So by growing big leafy plants in the refugium zone, you are preventing the nuisance algae from growing in the display area. But I do have elevated phosphates, but I also have snails and hermits. I think it all just works out just fine. Luke says, I have this orangish slime sponge that's taking over the back and bottom of some of the live rocks. Have you encountered something like that before? I need to see pictures, preferably in white light, because a lot of times people identify something under blue light, and then we turn on the white lights, it's a completely different color. But sponge does grow under rocks. It is common. It can spread across things. Slime, on the other hand, could be bacterially based. So let's figure out what you have. And you can post that in Club Milo's Reef. That would be useful. If you guys aren't a member, Club Milo's Reef just turned 5 years old this month. We have 9,300 people in there. We are coming up on 10,000 users. And by the way, I was looking at the members list yesterday because I'm that kind of guy. And there was about 155 non-active accounts. So out of 9,300 people that have joined the group, only 155 are fake. So that's pretty good. I mean, it's not like 4,000 are fake people. That's one of the things I don't like. When you see a group with like 80,000 members, you're like, how come there's not 80,000 people posting? You know, the numbers don't make sense. But I'm not seeing 9,000 people posting either, so there's that. But yeah, if you haven't become a member of Club Milo's Reef, it is my group on Facebook. We talk about aquariums in there, and we have a very friendly group. Well, that's actually the rules. I made a rules video 5 years ago where I explained everything. And you know, to be honest, it's kind of funny that set of rules that I created back then has become the Bible of that group. And it has basically handled every possible scenario that could go wrong. And it's only 5 minutes long. It's not like my 2-hour live streams. So I'm actually pretty impressed that I did such a short video that actually works that well. But, you know, the bottom line was treat others the way you want to be treated. If you're having a bad day, don't post in there. Don't gang up on people and make them feel bad. You know, don't even talk about the tank police because I hate it. Just all that stuff. And so the rules were created to keep this as a friendly environment where you can ask a question and not be embarrassed or feel dumb or feel like, you know, it's been asked before. It's okay. You can ask it. And we will answer because that's the point. And one of the things it says in that rules video is that, you know, if you've seen this question asked 100 times, like, is this an aptasia, and you are fed up with it, just scroll past. Don't say, yes. You know, just, it's okay. You know, don't let things rile you up. That's not the point of the group. The group's there to be helpful. So please do join. If you haven't, it's facebook.com/groups/MeLivesReef. Guess this would be a good time for me to promote my business too. Please shop at melivesreef.com. It is how I pay the bills. And right now the bills are higher because electricity for my AC unit is, you know, costing me a lot. And my water bill just came in at double the normal rate because of the sprinklers, because of the heat. So between electricity and water, I need more business from you guys. Someone called me up a few days ago. She said that she was watching my live stream last weekend and how I started off the show talking about my business. And she was, oh, I get it. You know, I understand why you would do that. You're trying to get some sales. And then, you know, we ended up talking for about 45 minutes and I answered a bunch of her questions and she was super nice. And she said she wanted to subscribe to this channel, which I appreciate as well. So if you are not a subscriber, please do, because that way you won't miss the next one. You definitely don't want to miss the plethora of subscription notifications that are going to go out, remind you there's another live stream and another live stream and another live stream during Markna. I'm assuming YouTube will send those out on the hour, but who knows? It may be so many that YouTube ignores us and we'll have to fend for ourselves, but we will do the best we can to put the word out there so people don't miss the various sessions as they happen. But back to business. Anything that you can purchase from my shop, whether it's dry goods or acrylic things that I build, helps me pay the bills and I appreciate it and it helps me feed Jack. Even Thomas gave me a super chat a few minutes ago, and he said, this is for the puppy to buy some toys or snacks. So she'll quit barking is what he meant to say. But she gets snacks all day long. She is spoiled. I have 3 or 4 different kinds of snacks always on hand. And then, of course, I walk her despite the horrible heat outside. But we go to walk at about 11 o'clock at night now when it's only 97 degrees outside. It's been pretty rough lately. And this week, it is supposed to be 100. We're supposed to hit 112, and I'm not looking forward to that at all. 112 in Texas. I mean, it's not unheard of. It's just I don't like it. And last year summer was not really this bad. Cody says, for manual removal of Derbacia, a strong siphon is not enough to suck the algae completely off the rock. Do you recommend just siphoning up what you can and leaving the rest, or actually scrubbing the rock? Siphoning off what you can would be great. I don't like scrubbing rock. I don't recommend it, and the biggest concern for it is that anything that you scrub off that becomes loose can blow around and stick somewhere else in the tank and spread it even worse. And so, because I know people have done things where they have a toothbrush and a tube, and they're trying to scrub and siphon at the same time, but little tendrils are going everywhere. So it's much better to reach in, take a bowl, fill it up with water, or a small bucket, fill it up with water, reach in the tank, pinch off a clump, take your hand out of the tank, put it in the bucket, rinse your fingers, put your clean hand back in the tank and grab another pinch, and just do this until you can't stand it. Maybe you last 20 minutes. And then tomorrow, do it again. And then the day after that, do it again. And the day after that, do the last of it. And after about 4 days, which would be 80 minutes of struggles, you will have reduced it probably by 80 to 90%. And then your new cleanup crew critters will go in there and they'll eat what's left of it, because they'll get the stuff that you couldn't quite get off with your fingertips. But that is what I recommend. I know some people that want to take rock outside, or they put it in the kitchen sink and they're brushing it. But the thing is, as you brush anything aquarium, and this goes for all the equipment that you clean, as you're doing it, especially if you're one of those people that thinks hot water is the way to go, you are creating steam, and you're scrubbing, and whatever you're scrubbing off the rock is hitting the water, the hot water, the steam, and you're inhaling it, and it can make you sick. So whether you're outside and you're brushing and it's just aerosolizing, you're inhaling it, or you're in a sink and you're using hot water, or even cold water, we just want to avoid the brushing. I don't recommend that at all. When I'm working with any kind of things like skimmer parts or pump parts I'm trying to clean, I do clean them in my sink. I use different sponges and toothbrushes and things like that. But I'm trying to, I've usually soaked it in something like Pump Clean. Pump Clean is a product that I sell from Sicce, and it is a blended version of citric acid. They've got some other stuff in there. So you don't have the smell, you don't have the burn feel that you will with just straight citric acid, and you definitely don't feel like muriatic acid. But I don't know, I like it. I've been using it now instead of buying citric acid by the giant bag. Because I was buying, like this bag from Amazon. I was trying to think of the brand, but it won't come to my mind. It doesn't matter. There's only one on there. It's in a greenish bag. And I was buying, like one bag for $16. And I would use a cup to a cup and a half with each batch I was mixing. And with Pump Clean, I can use 4 little scoops. So it seems to be more concentrated to me. I don't know. You might say it's not. I feel like the price makes sense. So I use Pump Clean. I put the stuff in there into a bucket. I put the power head in there that I'm trying to clean. And if I can, I plug the power head in so that all the water's churning and really getting it into every crevice. And then after it's done, I can take it out, I can go to the sink, and I can take a sponge and basically wipe it clean. And then I just toothbrush those little hard spots that are a little bit more tricky to get clean, or that the sponge couldn't get into. But I'm very cautious. I'm not inhaling stuff. So that's one of the things I want to say. And if you're taking the rock outside and you're brushing it, or you're trying to pressure wash it, or you're garden hosing it, you're just sending stuff flying everywhere, and it's not really getting it all off the rock either. I mean, you might see some of it go away, but you'll send some loose tendrils, and then you take your rock, you put it back in your tank, and it's been through this. And if there's any sponges on the rock, they're dying off from being exposed to the air. I've just chosen never to remove rock from the tank to clean it. I just don't like doing that. I like to clean the tank, the rock in the tank, where it's sitting, where the corals are, so I'm not changing the bio load itself. I'm not messing up the bacterial load of the aquarium either. I'm just reaching in and focusing on the troubled areas. Just like I will be one by one working on the different Mahanos in my reef, and I will just tackle them a little bit at a time until they're all gone again. I shouldn't have ignored them all this time, and some of them are beasts. They're just humongous, and they're really pretty actually, but they are not a good thing to have in a reef tank, so I need them to go. Let's see. Mitch says, I love my tuxedo urchin. Having tangs, urchins, hermits, and trochus, I'd personally argue that the urchin is my most effective grazer. But man, do they need a large surface area to not starve to death. If you end up having, I don't like to have too many urchins in a tank. I wasn't necessarily wanting 11, but I did get some that were this big. I mean, they were little grapes. They were so adorable. Like super-sized blueberries, right? And so putting those in a 7-foot reef made sense. But when they got big, I was thinking, that's not so good. But somehow they have all just continued to do fine. I haven't seen, like, I don't lose one a month or anything like that. I still have 8. So I would say that, yes, they do need good real estate. If your tank is smaller, 1 is probably just enough. If your tank is a little bit bigger than a nano, if you have something that's in the 40 to 60 to 75 gallon, 90 gallon tank, you might need a couple in that aquarium. But yeah, I definitely think a tuxedo urchin should be in your aquarium. Let's see. Ellery, thank you so much for subscribing. That is going to change everything now in the analytics. They're going to be, wait, somebody new joined? Thomas, I haven't had any problems with mine, but feel free to let us know specifically. You can send me an email if you want. I will forward it to them, and they'll see if they can figure out what's going on for your device. And you know, Reef Trace does work for iOS and for Android. We would need to know what system you're using it on, and we'll get you taken care of. Sometimes the easiest solution is to delete the app and reinstall it. Just start fresh. And but the data is still there because it's saved in the cloud, so you don't lose anything. JP Reef says, I have a 6-month-old tank started with dry rock. Phosphates are measuring 0.09, nitrates are around 30, and I'm battling hair algae. I'm doing weekly manual removal and Brightwell razor. How long should I expect this to last? Well, you did say the tank is 6 months old, so he just kind of came out of the ugly phase, but odds are you need more cleanup crew in there anyway. You need some more snails. You need a few hermit crabs too. And but is it forever? No, it is just algae. I wrote an article on this a long time ago about getting rid of green hair algae. It's on melovesreef.com if you prefer to read that versus watching a video. But I do have a video on this channel too about green hair algae. And I remember when I made the video, I intentionally grew hair algae in this small frag tank so I could do the video about it. And I thought how funny it is that I'm letting this just get out of control so that I can do this. But then I uploaded it. And I thought, okay, good job, Mark. And then I thought, you know what? Let me see if anyone else has done videos on green hair algae. And of course, there was like 4 or 5. And they were like 800,000 views and 700,000 views and 500,000 views. And I thought, why did I even make this video? How dumb. But you know what? My little video is still chugging along and people are still watching it and it's still helping them. So I'm glad I did it back then. That was a long time ago. Let's see. Bob wants to know, do tailspot blennies eat algae? I don't know. I do not know. I've never owned one. That's a small tank fish, and I don't have any small tanks. I could probably put one in Caitlin's reef. By the way, her little reef, if you guys saw my Bena Reef video I shared yesterday, it was a Instagram, Facebook video. Her tank's got a lot of this filamentous algae. It's probably hair algae, but it is the weirdest hair algae I've ever grown because it doesn't really hold on to anything. Doesn't seem to anyway. And I just keep having to like siphon out some, and it's kind of irritating because it's this little thing I have to do once a month and I don't like doing it. It's like in the old days when I had my angle tank and I had to keep working on removing caulerpa from the display. And I was just like, man, I hate doing this task. So anyway, I'm going to Fluxorex that tank, and I'm going to get rid of this hair algae once and for all. And if I lose my pretty red macro, I will buy more pretty red macro to put back in there because I did like seeing that growing in there, but I need this hair algae to go away. Thank you. Mike says the citric acid on Amazon is Milliard. That is correct, and he says it's bluish, so there goes my memory. That tells you how long ago I bought it. It probably was green back then. No, you're probably right, it was bluish. He says, how much more aggressive does the Ciche Pump Clean work than 1 cup of gallon of citric acid? Well, okay, so you're talking to a guy who used to put things in vinegar and water and let it sit overnight. With Pump Clean, I'm kind of working on it within a couple of hours. So I'd say it works pretty well. Now, if I'm in a hurry, and I'm not the only guy, like I said, I talk about Dwayne all the time because we talk every single week. But he and I, we really like muriatic acid, which is way faster. You put the pump in there, sizzle pop, 20 minutes later, you're cleaning it. I mean, it's just, you are going at it. And, we've been doing this like this for the longest time. The problem is I have a stainless steel sink, and muriatic acid stains the stainless steel. So that's why I've been leaning way more into the pump clean, because I know it's not going to ruin my sink or my countertop, which is important to me because, I have to cook food and use that sink on a regular basis. But it is slower than muriatic acid. But I couldn't say that plain citric acid from Amazon and pump clean are identical. I don't think they are. There's something different about them, and I don't know what the secret ingredients are, honestly. I really don't, but I have continued to use it instead of the stuff from Amazon. So I don't know if that means anything to you, but that's just how I felt about it. I do tend to sell the things that I use myself, and that's why you find those things in my shop. Oh my goodness, I can show you guys something new. Let me open up this browser first. I gotta figure out how to do this because it's not released yet. Okay, so this week, actually, let's do this. Please stand by. Wonder how I'm going to do this. Maybe I should open as a little tiny window on the screen. All right, let's try and do this. What are you doing? Cooperate. Let's get this off my screen. It's in the way. I don't like this thing. Here we go. Put this right here, maybe. And now we are on this scene. I want to add new screen share overlay. I think that's right. That's not what I wanted. I want just the program itself. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. There we go. So this right here you're looking at is the new version of my shop area of the website. Look how pretty that is. So this will be on the website soon and be a lot easier to find things. And let's see if I can get this to cooperate. There we go. So you can see all the different, this is where I was working, all those images I shared on Facebook yesterday. I needed these graphics behind all these vendors that I sell. Notice Mila's Reef has anemones and clownfish. Wonder why that is. So yeah, that's been going on there. And then you've got your drop-down menus, of course, when you're trying to shop for things on here. And let's say we went to, I don't know, foods. And then you've got sub-menus here for different categories. And down here are all the different foods I sell. Look how pretty that looks. And then you pick something like Benarife. And it shows the RO units I sell. And then below is the product. And you can just add to cart. You can pick the size. I mean, it's so pretty. So anyway, this is something in development right now. And I hope you guys like it. Now, how to get rid of this window. There's too much stuff on my screen. There we go. It's gone. All right. So I hope you guys like that. I'm very excited about it. We've been working on this thing for about 4 weeks. And I don't know. It'll be up when it's available. You know, they have to decide when everything's ready, but we're very close. And I think the shopping experience will be nicer on Mila's Reef. I know some people have told me it's difficult to buy things from my website. It doesn't go like other websites. I don't know why, but I can tell you this. The search in the shop is how you buy everything. You just type in what you're looking for. It will show you anything that's matching. And then there's the shop by brands. And you can say, oh, I know it's by Two Little Fishies. I know it's by Neptune. I know it's by Blue Life, and you just hit it and it shows you anything related to that product. I had the brands thing added a few years ago because it was just so much easier. Plus, I loved it when someone would say, hey, I need an ELOS test kit, and I could hit brand ELOS, and then it would show all of them. I could send a link and say, here are all the test kits I sell. And I thought that that was super convenient. So I did all that, and those guys did a great job with a new look. I'm excited. I kind of want the entire website to match it, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's just get the shop because that's where the money is made. The rest of the website is just blogs and articles anyway, and it's information that's forever. So anyway, I hope that you like it. Let's see. Andrea says, so fancy. Thank you. Yeah, no, I love it. When they showed me, because they said, we're doing this, we're doing that, we need this, we need access to that, and they were working, they said, give us this API, and we need you're an account for this, and log us into that, and I was like, okay, and I just kept paying the bill, like, okay, here's your invoice, pay the bill, and then finally they said, here's what it looks like, like, ooh, and then over this last week, the 300 plus products were being added to the shop, and getting it ready for the big, I guess. They practice at one place and then they move it to where it's going to be. And then boom, it's ready to go with no flaws. That's the goal. Hi, Joaquin. How are you? Oh, by the way, people sometimes don't know where my name comes from, Milev. And they're, I do mention it once a year or something like that, and I haven't mentioned it in a while. So all that is the initials of my name, Mark E. Levinson, M-E-L-E-V. So that's where Milev's Reef came from. It's something I came up with 20 years ago. And the website has, just been clicking along ever since. If you have any other questions, now's the time to ask before I wrap this up. That's one of the things we do with the live stream. We have a topic for the week, and then we go into a Q&A period where you can ask a question. I'll do the best I can to answer it or point you the right direction. And then at that point, you are able to, get some direct contact. Also, I should mention that I do offer consultations. So if somebody wants one-on-one help, what I do is I offer a 1-hour phone call through whatever system you want. Usually it's going to be FaceTime or Facebook Messenger video or Skype, something like that, where we can see your system. And I charge $125 for that call. But if we go longer than an hour, I don't sit there and keep adding to the meter. We just go until we're done. And it's a case-by-case thing. I schedule it with you. We do your session. The last person I did it with said it was worth every penny. He was so happy to have that consultation with me. So if it's something you're interested in, you need some help, and you wanted someone to put a second pair of eyes on your system, I'm happy to help you figure out what's going on and how to alleviate the problem. And yeah, I do charge for my time, but that's only because I got to eat. Jeb says, I still need you to make me a matching Kalkwasser box. Sorry, my tank builder and myself decided to do a 400-gallon tank instead, so it's not finished yet. That's okay, whenever you're ready. And if for some reason I'm swamped when you ask, I'll just schedule you in. I'll do the best I can. Right now, the load is kind of light, which is good, but I have got several acrylic. I've got 10 or 15 people right now. I'm working on their orders, and I send them out, and 10 or 15 new orders come in. So it's just a constant cycle of that. And then, of course, anything that people buy that's dry goods, where it comes to pumps and lights and additives, those go in a box and get shipped out almost immediately. So that part's nice too. Jeb says, on a bare bottom tank, how long does the ugly stage last? It's the same. Biology doesn't change just because there's no sand. You would think that sand has an impact and a change on it, but really it doesn't. But the sand does have a benefit. I love sand in a reef tank. I think that a tank that doesn't have sand looks too museum-like. I don't like that sterile look. So instead what I do is I put I put sand in every aquarium I set up. And I've seen tanks that were bare bottom, like I mentioned, but I've seen them with detritus on the bottom, and I don't like the look of that. And every single day, you've got things shedding waste. Whether it's corals expelling, fish are pooping, whatever's happening, that stuff is just blowing around the bottom and getting in the corner or getting under this rock in the middle, or there's always this puddle of gunk. And of course you can siphon it out, but you're not going to siphon it out constantly. You're going to siphon it out during your weekly maintenance. So that means for 6 days you're looking at the stuff getting worse and worse. I don't like that look. I'd much rather have a sand bed where I can't tell. And one of the perks of the sand bed is that the light hits the sand and reflects back up to the underside of the corals, and that helps them with their growth and their overall coloration, where a bare bottom doesn't give that reflective nature. You'd think it would, like a mirror, but it doesn't. It just absorbs the light. It sucks it down. So you don't get that mirror reflection or that bounce back off the sand like you do with sand. That's why one of the reasons I like sand in an aquarium. Let's see. Bandit Hill says, I picked up a dwarf golden moray eel from a local reefer breaking down their system. Do you have any specific care tips? Well, actually, there's an eel video that we did probably in January of this year with Amy, the eel lady, where she gives all her advice. So I would suggest you rewatch that live stream with her because she knows everything. I also had one that I thought was a dwarf golden moray eel, but she told me mine was a banana eel, and so when I Googled the two side by side, she was right. They look different, and I think the difference was the eyes. But they don't eat all the time. They really, basically, as far as I know, can be fed once a week. You definitely want something solid on the top of your tank because eels jump out, and you do not want a jumper. You don't want to lose your eel. I don't handle my eel. It sounds dirty. I don't handle my eel. I recommend you don't put your hands on it much. Leave it in the tank. I don't try to pet fish or eels or anything like that in the aquarium because I don't want to affect any of their slime coat. And something that Amy recently wrote an article about was how she would always feed in the same spot so the eel would come to the food. And I thought that was really interesting. So when her article comes out, you got to be sure to read it. But in the meantime, watch that video. That'll help. Martin asks a great question. The teeth get dirty on overflow that raises the water level in the tank because as it gets clogged up, the water rises higher and gets clogged up and it rises higher and it clogs. So that's why every few weeks you have to clean those teeth out. He said, I work away a lot for a few weeks at a time. Would it be a bad idea to remove a couple of teeth to allow more water flow? Actually, the solution for you really should be to put a lid on the top. Now, I sell overflow lids, but you can make one yourself if you want. You can get some sign material like the kind that says free car wash or vote for Jeb or whatever it is. That kind of material. It's called Coroplast. And you can find black Coroplast probably at places like Hobby Lobby or maybe in Lowe's and Home Depot section. Just some kind of, those are the kind of stores I can think of. And then you would go ahead and you would cut out the shape of the overflow box, but make it about a ½ an inch wider all the way around the overflow. So that way it creates a shadow on the teeth and you won't have any algae growing in there anymore. This will also help keep fish from jumping into the overflow or having algae grow in the overflow box itself that comes from the lights shining down. So that lid is really, really practical. And like I said, I've been selling these lids for a long time. I make them for lots of different styles of aquariums. If you want me to make you a lid, I'd be happy to do so. I make them out of polycarbonate rather than acrylic because polycarbonate stays flat. But I wouldn't cut out teeth because it'll long term you'll be wishing you had the teeth back in there. So it's much better to put the lid on top to create a nice big shadow over that area. And that should help to alleviate this problem you're describing. Yeah, Thomas, you can email me at sales, S-A-L-E-S, at milasreef.com. Oh, thank you for mentioning that, Lord Thornton Eddington. Man, he sounds so official. I just wanted to share my experience as sea hair helped keep my moderate green hair algae outbreak under control. But severe green hair algae only wiped out with 6 weeks of Vibrant. Kills the Chetomorphus, so there's a sacrifice. Listen, the sea hair is another good choice for eating hair algae. Thank you for reminding me of that because I forgot. The only problem with sea hairs is once you put them in the aquarium, they eat it really fast. And they eat themselves out of the home. Basically, they run out of food and then they can die in your tank. So you want to make sure that you're basically borrowing it or renting it and have the next home ready to receive it when you're done. Because keeping it well fed is going to be hard. I don't even know if you could just keep giving it a sheet of nori a day if that would be good enough. I don't even know. But I do know we had one in our club and it was named Rerun because we all shared it, and it went from Green Hair Algae tank to Green Hair Algae tank to Green Hair Algae tank. And that was a good solution. Now, Vibrant was a product that came out a few years ago, and it promised to have all these things in it. That was supposed to be fantastic. But there were people that had success, and you had people that lost their tanks to it. And eventually, it seems that it was identified this was just purely like an API algicide that's just being poured into a bottle called Vibrant and being charged more money for it. And so there's lawsuits apparently in the works right now. So I don't actually recommend Vibrant. I've never used it, I've never bought it, and I don't have good feelings about it. Rob says, would video conference include looking at some Apex programming? Absolutely. Matter of fact, you can add me to your Apex and I can actually look at it with you. You can give it to where I can just look at it, or I can actually go in there and I can manage it, or I can program it. So you have lots of choices. And I actually do watch a few tanks. So yeah, I'd be absolutely happy to help you figure out some of the stuff. I don't know it all, but I'll do my best. But yes, that is definitely part of it. Bob says, is there somewhere in your site that talks about the differences in your sumps? Yes, in the articles section, there's a whole bunch of sump stuff. There must be 16 different sump articles. So you can go to the top of the website and hit the big search, the search at the top in the navigation bar, and type in sump, and then you'll see all the links. And there'll be sump Model A, Model B, Model C, Model D, Model E, Model G, GXT, and it goes through this whole list, because I think it went all the way to like sump M. So there's half an alphabet of sump articles. Oh, thank you, Andrea, for putting the link up for the Eel Lady talk. Dances with Fishes, thank you so much. She says, I love my work tray, which is super helpful, by the way. If you guys don't have a work tray, you're missing out. And I'm going to order the acclimation box and the Camor shelves. Awesome, thank you very much. I hope you have a great week too. Let's see. Hillbilly Reefer says the tuxedo urchin has been the best hair algae eater I've ever had, like a lawnmower. Yeah, I believe it. All right. Any other questions? I'll give you an update on the anemone cube. I built the stand 2 weeks ago. And all I need is a band of wood to go around the front and sides, and then the tank will go on top. I cannot find that band of wood I want. I need it to be made of birch, and I went to Home Depot and to Lowe's, and they did not have it. I also need birch, I think it's called edge banding, that goes on the edge of the plywood so you don't see the plies. And that was out of stock. All they had was red oak banding, and I want birch. So I may have to go to Amazon to get the birch banding, and I might have to go to a wood, like a lumber supply to get my 1x3 birch. One stick. But without that stick and that banding, I can't start staining. Once it's stained and varnished, sealed, so that I don't have to worry about ever rotting, then I'll bring it inside, put it in place, put the tank on there, and begin getting it running. It's been a very slow going project. And all I can say is I'm a patient guy. But I also have a lot going on, and so I just work on it as time allows. Jeb says, is it possible for the algae turf scrubber to be too big? Well, I mean, the nice thing is algae turf scrubbers often come with a rating. So they'll say this one is made for a 100-gallon tank. This one's made for a 1,200-gallon tank. And so you kind of have an idea. I think that if you have an algae... Now, the other part of an algae... Matter of fact, I was just talking with Jason Langer of Foursquare Aquatics, asking if he'd like to talk about this topic on Markna. And because he's been amassing a lot of information about nitrate control and measuring weights and doing staggered lighting cycles and scrubbing one side of the screen instead of both sides every single time. Do 1 week this side and the next week that side, and see if that changes how it removes nitrate. Very interesting stuff. So I'm hoping he'll say yes, but ultimately he has to feel comfortable to have that topic with us. But the scrubber cannot be ignored, and it needs to be maintained. I just cleaned mine out last weekend, and it was filthy, gross, nasty, and my nitrates rose. And I'm pretty sure it's because I had a bad run. I didn't have a good harvest. It just looked like a cyano snot ball. And of course my nitrate shot up, and I was really upset because I had finally got my nitrates down where they belonged, and I was like, are you kidding me? But when I'd opened the drawer even a week before that, it hadn't grown with hair algae. It was just like green moss and water pouring down and like sludge at the bottom. I was like, that's not a good sign. And I gave it another week hoping that it would maybe start growing some hair algae, and it just got worse. So I cleaned it out again. But that's the thing about a scrubber, is that it cannot be ignored and neglected. You have to stay on top of it, and you probably need to harvest it about every 10 to 12 days. And in my case, I feel like it does better when you're dosing trace elements. And when you back off the trace element dosing, I think that affects it. I think you're always going to need things like iron in the water column. And then there's a product from Captivate called MT that is specifically recommended for algae turf scrubbers. And you put that in the aquarium, and it helps the scrubber do better. And I know that Jason's using it with his, and also Clearwater Scrubbers is including a bottle with every package they ship. So they are recommending, so both companies are saying MT is the way to go. So if you're running an algae turf scrubber, you need to be using the MT dose as well, which is it's a mixture of different trace elements all in one little bottle. But back to your question, is it possible to have too big of one? Yeah, I guess so. Like if I took my giant one upon Caitlin's reef, it probably wouldn't do anything. But I think what I have is definitely sized correctly for my 450-gallon water volume. Brian says, I want to ask, how do you solve a vermitid snail outbreak? Well, one thing that you can do is you can break them off completely. If you have some kind of dental tools that you get from Harbor Freight, you can go in there and snap the tubes off, and then keep picking at the rock and pull off the entire coiled calcified skeleton. Just get the whole darn thing out of the tank and remove it. And keep doing that one by one until they're all gone. If you're talking about those really tiny ones, they're going to be much harder to eradicate because there's so many of them. If you're talking about the big beefy ones that I grow that are Texas size, not quite as difficult because I don't have thousands of them, but I have 100 tough guys. So I've got to work my way through the tank and just basically remove them one by one. You can break off the tube. You can then put glue over the hole to seal it in. There's been a lot of recommendations for bumblebee snails to go and consume them. I've not bought any bumblebee snails in 15 years. And I don't know that they would work with my big giant vermitids. Maybe they would. Maybe I'd end up with really big bumblebees from eating all those snails. But that is one solution that seems to be tried and true, is to completely break them off and get them out of the tank. Mike, thank you very much for saying that. He says, I'm making RODI water now, and I'm getting 1 TDS coming out. Going to be placing an order today for sure. We'll pick up some CJ pump clean and some other stuff. Thanks, I appreciate that. Ellery says, I have the largest ice cap external scrubber, and it worked too well. I had to dose a lot more iron and manganese to keep my Goniopora happy. You can tune it by reducing the photo period. Yes, that is true. Matter of fact, I run mine for I think 8 hours a day. I know Clearwater Scrubbers is more ready. Josh is always recommending just run it for 24 hours a day, but I just have the opinion of following photosynthesis, that you have a light period and you have a dark period, because that is how nature works. So that's why I choose the shorter period of 8 hours a day. However, when I was talking about Jason's staggered cycle, he runs it for a couple of hours, then it's off for an hour, then it turns on for an hour, then it's off for an hour, then it turns on for an hour. And I'm talking about the lights. The pump is always pushing water through it. So he's got a really crazy schedule, and I've considered employing it, but now that my scrubber wasn't growing well, I don't want to change anything. So there's always these little things we can tweak and change slightly to change the result of what we get. And maybe because I haven't had a lot of bad harvests. I've had a lot of good harvests, but this last one was terrible. So something went wrong, and you know what? I wasn't dosing my MT like I should have been, and I think that's the problem. So I need to get back on track and get my little dosing pump running and get the stuff going into the tank daily like I was doing before, because that clearly had a good impact on the scrubber and the whole system looked good. So I need to do that. My tank just turned 9 years and 9 months old on the 10th, which was 2 days ago. I shared a picture of the reef. I mean, you see the reef behind me, but I shared a picture on Instagram and on Facebook if you want to see what it looks like as of 2 days ago. But other than that, there's not really a lot of news with the aquarium. Siri was listening to me. OU8112 says, just wanted to say your videos are very informative and inspiring. Well, I appreciate that, and that is intentionally. That is really what I try to do with every video. I want to help the most people I can to help them be successful with their tanks. All right, I think we will change gears. If I can find my other little window that has vanished. Oh, I bet it's hiding behind there. Aha, there it is. So I want to just recommend that you guys do your water testing today. It is Water Test Saturday. This is the day when we want to check all of our parameters and make sure that everything is fine. I'm going to be doing the same thing myself to see if everything's good or what I need to tweak. I'm going to go ahead and mix up my trace elements today, and this is going to be on my list of things to do. I got up this morning early before it was 112. It was, I think it was about 81 degrees this morning when I got up. And I ran outside before it could warm up, and I installed my new mailbox because that was a project I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do it in the heat of the day. So I got that knocked out today. And so I feel like I've already been productive for the day, but I definitely want to be productive with my reef tank as well. My tank looks clean. It's probably time to clean my skimmer's collection cup. It's been probably a few weeks since I've done that. And but I definitely want to do my water testing. I'm going to check my salinity, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, nitrate, phosphate. Of course, double check the temperature for the week and see if everything's on track, but that should be. And make sure that my dosing containers are filled up to the right amount. I have a jug of magnesium that's under the tank. I want to double check the level, make sure the dosing pump is still pushing fluid out. I want to do the same with my trace element dosing and make sure that that is correct. So I've got a few things I need to tackle. And I recommend you do the same thing with your tank, because every single week you stay on top of things with your tank, the easier it is to keep it looking nice. And when you just neglect it and ignore it and just let it go for another week and another week, then it's going to be so much more work trying to get things straightened out again. That's why I emphasize how important it is for you to test your water daily. Weekly. I almost said daily. It's really important that you test your water frequently. Hillbilly Reefer says, is it worth adding Live Rock Enhance to an already well-established tank? And will bubble algae grow on coralline algae? Well, number one, yes. You can absolutely use reef with Live Rock Enhance. You can use that in your reef. It's great. You can use it twice a week. And if you just do it twice a week for like 4 weeks straight, you will, and do a before picture. Take a picture of the tank, then do the dose for a full month, and then take an after picture and look at the comparison. You will see the difference. You'll notice that there's more coralline growth. You will see that it looks cleaner. It actually opens the pores in the rock work. It's really interesting stuff. And it absolutely works in a reef tank. It also works with new dry rock if you're trying to establish a new tank. And then yes, bubble algae will grow on anything, including on top of coralline. Lord Thornton says, I have your acclimation box, the Peacemaker, and it's an excellent product, but how do you suggest keeping it clean when algae starts growing all over it and it blocks the light? Well, the acclimation box should only be used 3 days at a time, so technically it shouldn't have algae on it at all. We use it for a few days, we put the animal into the aquarium, and then we clean the Peacemaker up and put it away for storage until next time. But if you have it in the tank for a long time, you may need to use some citric acid to really clean it up and get off all the stuff that's on there that's building up. It's totally safe with your acrylic. It won't do any damage. I like to use magic erasers rather than using something with a scrubby pad on it, because sometimes the scrubbies can scratch the acrylic. So you want to make sure it's something soft enough that can handle it. If you have any stubborn like coralline on there, you can use a credit card to chip it off of, like a hotel room card or a gift card, chisel that off the acrylic, and that way the acrylic will look nice again. And worst case, you can put the whole darn thing in some muriatic acid and it'll melt away anything. But yeah, you're only supposed to have it in the tank for a little while, not for weeks on end. Dances with Fishes says, not nitrate check again, the weekly kick in the sack. Yeah, it's no fun knowing what the nitrates are because they're always up. But, you know, I was happily shocked a few weeks ago when it measured 15. I was like, oh my goodness. I made a big announcement in Club Miller's Reef because I couldn't believe it. But, you know, it is what it is. She says, the old 7 minutes of suspense compliments of Hannah. That's so funny. 7 minutes of suspense. Yeah, with API, it's 5 minutes. But I hear you. I get it. All right. I think we'll wrap up here. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will have another live stream next Saturday at 2:08 Central Time. Bye.